your Levitation photos. So the first thing that we need to do is open Finder, go to your Levitation folder, and locate the photos that you want to edit. So I'm going to start with these two photos right here, which is an example from a past student. I need to right click on the photo and choose Open with Adobe Photoshop. If right click doesn't work, then hold on the Control key on your keyboard and Control click. So again, right click, Open with Adobe Photoshop. It's helpful if you have Photoshop open before because it'll load faster. And then remember with raw files that this window will open when you try to open a raw file in Photoshop. It is part of Photoshop, so please don't pull it off your screen. I know that there's no red X, so if you didn't mean to open it, you can choose cancel. If you do want to open this photo in Photoshop, then you need to choose open, and that will pull it into the main Photoshop window. Then I need to go back to my Finder and open the second one as well. It doesn't matter which order you open the photos in. You just need your subject and your background. We're going to click Open for this one as well. All right, now I have my two photos open in tabs. So if you look at the top of the Photoshop window, you should see the two tabs with the background and the subject photo. Please locate your subject photo, and we need to unlock the one layer that we have in the layers panel. So we're going to unlock it. That will allow us to copy the layer, and we're going to paste it on top of the other one. Here you press Command C to copy. So Command C, C is for copy. And then go to the other tab and press Command V, and that will paste it over here. So you should see two layers. And then up at the top here, we don't need this tab anymore, so I'm just going to close it. We don't need to save it because we didn't do anything. So now I'm just left with one tab, and it has both of my photos over here in the layers panel. All right, now this particular photo that I chose is a little bit underexposed. I think it's enough that we can bring a little bit of light in through Photoshop, so we'll add an adjustment. If your photo is way over or way underexposed, you need to retake it. But if it's just a little bit too dark or too bright, you may be able to fix it. So to add that adjustment, I'm going to first select my top photo. That way it'll put the adjustment over both of them. And I'm going to go up to adjustments at the top here. It may look a little bit different if you have the updated version of Photoshop, but find adjustments. I'm going to choose brightness/contrast, and when I click on that, that adds a new layer above these two. This type of layer, for like an adjustment layer, will affect anything that is below it. So if it's above both layers, it'll affect the whole image. If I were to move it so it's only above the background, then it only affects the background layer. So if you want to brighten the whole thing, put it above both layers. I'm going to pull up the brightness and lower the contrast a little. And then this photo, it still looks a little bit dark in the shadows, so I'm going to go ahead and add another adjustment. I'm going to do a curve. If you don't know how to use this, if you haven't tried that out in Lightroom, then you can just stick to the brightness layer, or brightness and contrast layer. All right, so those are my adjustments, and the photo's looking a lot better. Okay, back to the subject layer here. Make sure that that's selected. We need to add a mask. So if you remember from the last project, the layer mask is located right down here below the layers panel. Just click on it and it will add a blank mask. Nothing here visibly changed because we didn't have anything selected when we made the mask. So it's just a blank mask. I'm going to double click on this mask to edit it. If double clicking does not work, let me go back. If it doesn't do anything when you double click, you should see a button up here that says select and mask. You might even see one at the top here. So if you can find anything that says select and mask, that will do the same as double clicking. All right, that brings us into our select and mask module. You should recognize the three brushes that we have over on the side here and the adjustments at the top. If you have used this before, then it should be on layers. That should be the view, but if not, please make sure that the view is on layers. If Photoshop updated, it might have changed it. All right, now I'm going to start with this top brush, which is the quick selection tool. That is the smart brush, and I need to adjust my settings up here. The plus will bring back the photo and the minus will take it away. Since I want to erase the chair, I'm going to stick to the minus. And then I have my brush set to 100, or you could do more than that. But I think it starts at 13, and that's pretty much always too small. So pull the size up to at least 100. Then to erase the chair, I want to zoom in so I can see it better. You can either use the magnifying glass over here on the left side, or you can press Command plus a couple of times to zoom in. With the Apple mouse that we have in class, you can use one finger to scroll around. If you're using a regular mouse, then you hold on the space bar and that turns your cursor into this little hand, and you can click and grab the photo to move it around. But if you've got the Apple mouse, just use one finger to scroll. Okay, now we need to erase the chair, and I'm going to click and paint just a little section at a time. So remove it little by little. If you notice a difference in the color here, if the original photo looks darker, that is because your subject is casting a shadow. So you need to erase the entire shadow in addition to the chair. So you may have to erase kind of out wide, just do this whole area below. Okay, and then I've edited this photo before, so I know that the pants are the same color as the chair, and when I go to erase the chair, it is going to erase the entire subject's leg. So I can switch back to the plus up here, and I can bring back the pants. So just go over it maybe a couple times to make sure that everything gets brought back. Don't go over the edge, because if you do, it will bring back the chair. So I'm going to press Command Z to undo that, but try to stay within the subject or within the legs. Let's bring back the shoe. And I always do a lot of small adjustments at a time just in case it overselects. When you get to a smaller part, you can make the brush a little bit smaller if needed. Okay, if you notice that there are any areas that did not erase neatly, and you can't get them to erase neatly with this quick selection brush, then you need to switch to the regular brush tool, which is the third one listed in the left toolbar. So click on that. Your settings from the last brush did not save, or each brush has its own settings, so we're going to switch it to minus. I'm going to make the brush a bit bigger. And then you also can make the brush have a softer edge if you want. So if you don't want it to be such a harsh edge, you can pull down this slider here. Make the brush nice and big, and then you can run it along the edge that you need to clean up. Like that. I'm going to do the opposite, make it a little bit smaller. Not that small. To clean up, like bring back in a little bit of this as well. Okay, and notice that I'm staying right along the edge. Okay, I could touch that up a little bit more, but that's pretty close, so I'm going to move on. When you are done, you can scroll around to check and see if you missed anything. You can zoom out. And if it looks good, you're going to press OK in the bottom right corner. That will take you back to the main Photoshop window. Now here, there's a couple of things that you can troubleshoot. So if you notice that your background did not line up with your subject, if it's a small shift, we might be able to fix it here. If it's a big shift, you'll need to retake the photo. So make sure that your subject layer is selected, not the mask, but the actual photo layer. And then you need to be on the Move tool. That is the first tool in your left-hand toolbar. So make sure you're on that. And then you can move your photo around. So move it around, see if you can get the tiles or whatever you have to reference in your background to line up. As you're moving this, if you need a little bit more control, you can hold on the Control key on your keyboard, and that lets you move it in like a more fine-tuned way. So mine was already pretty well aligned, so I'm just going to leave it. But if you need to realign your photo, use the Move tool on the photo layer. Now, if you are noticing that your background looks like a different color, like the background's brighter or darker, it could just be a shadow that you need to erase down below. But if the whole thing looks different, you probably were near a window and the sun changed between your photos. So what you would do is select your background layer, create an adjustment. So I'm going to do brightness and contrast. And if it's only above the background, it will only affect the background. So I can make it brighter or darker, and you just want to move that until it lines up and looks like it matches. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer because I don't actually need it. So with that layer selected, I'm going to press the delete button. But if you do notice a difference in the values of your layers, just add a layer above the background for brightness and contrast. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is add a drop shadow. Now, I want my drop shadow to be just above the background layer, and I'm going to make a new layer for it. So if you click on this little plus button at the bottom, that will add a new blank layer. If you do it above both photos, then you run the risk of accidentally having a shadow covering part of your subject. So I just would rather have it in between them. The reason we use a blank layer is because we are going to paint a fake shadow, and I don't want you to paint it on your photo in case you mess up. It's a lot easier to just delete this layer and start over than to try to get it off of your photo. Now in the left-hand toolbar, we need to find the brush tool. Please make sure that it is just a regular brush tool, not the history brush tool, just the regular one. Click on that, and then we need to adjust our settings. At the bottom of your toolbar, you will see color swatches. They should be black and white with black as the main color. If they're a different color, then click on this little tiny black and white swatch, and that will reset it. Then let's go up to the top. You want the size of your brush to be pretty large, so I'd say somewhere between 700 and 1500. Make it bigger than you actually want your shadow to be, because we're going to make the shadow fade out really gradually, so the brush needs to be larger than the actual shadow. Then in this panel, you'll see some folders here. If the panel is a little bit too small, you can open it and make it bigger. We want to open the general brushes, and I really like this second to last one because it's the most subtle and it kind of fades out. Then up at the top here again, we have the opacity and the flow. I would change both of those to about 35. It's not an exact science, but the opacity is basically how see-through the shadow is, and the flow is how many brush strokes it takes to build up the shadow. So if we set those both really low, we can make a really gradual drop shadow. I have my blank layer selected, and I don't want to put the shadow right below his feet because he's meant to be up high, so I'm going to put it down a little bit lower. And as I paint, you'll see just a really subtle shadow coming in. You don't want this to look like a dark blob down here like that. That is not believable. So if you have your opacity and your flow set pretty low, and then you just do a couple of brush strokes, that will make a pretty realistic shadow. So that is all you need. It doesn't need to be more intense than that. If you have really strong lighting in your photo, then let me know and I can help you make a different type of shadow. But this is pretty much it. So once you're done, you need to save your changes. You can either press Command S, or you can go up to File, Save As. It also doesn't hurt to save at the beginning when you start editing, because then you're less likely to lose changes. But File, Save As. This will go in your Levitation folder. We're just going to put everything together in the same folder. Your format should be Photoshop for this first save, and you can give it a new name if you would like, but you don't have to. Go ahead and hit save, and you have to wait for this blue bar to finish loading before you can save another copy. Once the blue bar finishes, we will save a copy. So we're going to go up to File, Save a Copy, not Save As. Save a copy. And the format here needs to be JPEG because that's the the file format that you can turn in. So make sure that is JPEG, and then I would recommend renaming this. You don't have to, but it helps to figure out which one to put on the slideshow. So I would call it Final Copy 1. And then click Save, and OK. The settings that are automatically here are fine. I had changed mine for something different, so you can just go ahead and click OK. Okay, and that is it. So now if I look in my Finder, I should have a PSD file. That is the Photoshop file, and I have a JPEG copy. So this is the photo that you would turn in on Canvas. Okay, if any of that didn't make sense, please you can go back and rewatch the video, or just let me know during class if you